Hello and welcome to this Affinity Photo 2 iPad version tutorial. Before starting the tutorial, there are one or two things I'd like to cover for those new to the iPad version of Affinity Photo. Mainly, it's a look at the interface once you have a new document or an image open. In my setup, in the bottom right corner, there are three icons. The bottom one is a question mark. Tap and hold this icon to see the names of all the visible menus, tools, and studio icons. To help you find the icon for the tool that you are looking for. The two arrow icons above the question mark are the undo and redo buttons. If you make a mistake, and believe me, we all make mistakes, you can use these icons to recover from those errors and try something else. The question mark icon should be there by default. The undo and redo buttons can be turned on from the Preferences user interface options. The Preferences icon is on the main start page you see before you open any document, but you can go back to it. Along the top of the interface are the menu icons. Down the left-hand side are the tools, and on the right are the studio icons. Pressing the question mark will name these, with the menu icons listed in the middle of the screen. When you select a tool or a studio, some extra icons for the selected item may appear in the gap at the top of the interface. Most tools will, when selected, may also add some slider controls on the left side. All these new interface icons will be named when you press the question mark, and any extra tools controls listed in the middle of the screen. Studios, once selected, will open a panel with options to select or adjust. Some studios will also have sub-menu panels, for example, the Layers Studio. From the main Studio panel, you can open the sub-menu called Layer Options. The tools icons, in some cases, open just one tool. Others let you access various tools. Any icon with a small arrow just to the right and below the icon will have multiple tools available. For example, the In-Painting Brush tool. If you tap, hold, and move to the right, a sub-menu will appear, showing all 6 brushes linked to this icon. Just move to the brush you want and let go to select that brush. The original desktop computer Photoshop tutorial by Andrew Lanxon Photography is called "This Easy Photoshop Tutorial Creates Stunning Fine Art Abstract Photos." I will add a link to it, and the PC Affinity Photo version, both the video and written versions. It is easier to see what is happening in a tutorial, and it is how I normally do landscape images, and that is to work in a landscape orientation. Assuming you are not using your own image. Open a new blank document via the New Document options. It doesn't really matter what size you select, as the stock image we will use will change the size to what it requires later. Select the stock studio icon from the option icons on the right of the interface. Use Pexels and search for Alone on the Beach. The image you want is in the 15th row, so scroll down to find it. Once found, tap and hold it Then drag it onto your canvas. Close the Stock Studio. Select the Document menu, and then select Canvas. From the sub-menu select Clip Canvas. This will fit whatever sized canvas you made to fit the actual image. Make sure your horizon is level. You can use the Crop tool to check your horizon. This image's horizon is okay, but if yours is not, use the Crop tool to straighten it. Open the Layers Studio. You will have one layer called Image. Select the Commands menu, and tap Duplicate. This will make a copy of that layer. Rename this new copy to Original. You do this by tapping on the three-dot icon in Layer Studio, which is the Layer Options menu, then tap on the layer name to change it. Next, convert this new layer to a pixel layer, by rasterizing it. You do this via the second icon above the layers in the Layers Studio. You need this layer rasterized to enable specific tasks to be done later. Return to the Layer Studio, and then turn off the visibility of the first image layer. Zoom into the figure on the beach. Then select the Smart Selection brush. Have the brush set to Add mode. Set brush size to about 7px. Select the body and head of the man. Then select the Move tool, and zoom into his feet. Use Smart Selection brush again but, set to about 1 or 2px. You may need to swap between Add and Subtract modes, to get a good selection. Once you are happy, use the Commands menu, and then Duplicate Selection. This will put your selection onto its own layer. Use Selection menu to turn off the selected area by using the Deselect option. Rename this new layer Figure. Turn off the visibility of the figure layer, and select the original layer. Select the inpainting brush. You may need to increase the brush size, using the bottom of the three sliders, showing on the left next to the tools. As you alter the slider, a circle showing the brush size will appear on the screen. Use this to gauge the size you will need. Paint over man and shadow, and once done the app will use the surrounding area pixels to fill in the painted area. The result doesn't need to be pixel perfect. Turn back on the figure layer, but keep the original layer selected. Tap on the Filters Studio icon. Near the top of the options, is a button called Add Live Filter. Tap this to get a list of all the live filters. Scroll down the alphabetical listing, and find Motion Blur and select it. On the left of the screen, move the top slider to 100%. If you want more, tap on the 100px number, and enter a higher number. I set mine to 500px, I left the other sliders as they were. This effect will distort the edges. So, tap on the Protect Alpha icon, at the top of the interface. To confirm the settings, just tap on the original layer icon, in the Layers Studio. As it is a live filter, you can always come back to it, and change the amount it is blurred, or the blur angle if you want to. Highlight the figure layer, and duplicate it, via the Commands menu. Rename the new layer Shadow. Select Move Tool, and then the Transform Studio. From this panel's options, select Flip Vertical. Return to Layers Studio, then zoom in on the figure and visually, move the shadow layer below the figure layer until the feet touch. You may need to swap to View mode, to get the image in a better position. Remembering to return to Move Tool, to position the shadow layer better. Make sure the shadow layer is selected, then from the Filters Studio, select the Live Filter, Perspective. This will put a white box around the layer, with a node in each corner. Tap, hold, and move the nodes so the shadow layer tapers inwards and downwards, at the head end. You may also need to move the feet end back upwards to touch the feet of the figure layer. Once you are happy, just select the shadow layer, in the Layers Studio once more. Tap the plus sign, in the Layer Studio, and add a mask. This will add a white layer mask to the shadow layer. It will not yet affect the image as it's a white layer, so has no effect because it is basically see-through. You need to make sure it's the mask layer that is highlighted, because as we add black to the mask, it will hide areas of the image, of the layer that the mask is attached to. Then tap on the Gradient tool, and add a linear black to white gradient, to the shadow layer's mask. You can select a linear gradient, from the options at the top of the interface. You can change the colors by selecting a node and in the Color Studio, selecting black for the lower node and white for the top node. White at feet end, as this will be the darkest part of the shadow effect, and as we know, the white areas of a mask will allow the layer below to be visible. Adjust the center point of the gradient to suit your tastes. In Layers Studio, tap the shadow layer icon to start the next step. Next, add the live filter, Gaussian blur. You won't need too much blur, maybe somewhere between 3 and 4 pixels. To tweak the effect a bit, you could highlight the shadow layer again. Then from Tools bar, select the Blur Brush tool. Set to 100% opacity and brush over the shadow layer, mainly the head end, to help blur it a little bit more. You can even add another Live Filter Motion Blur to the shadow layer if you feel it needs it, but set it quite low, between 5 and 10. This next part is an Adjust to Taste option. If you are happy with the image as it looks, don't do this bit. All that we are going to do is tinker with the colors of the background. Turn off the visibility to the figure layer and the shadow layer, and highlight the original layer. I moved my original layer to the Develop persona by just clicking on the Personas button in the top left of the interface. Then in the Basic tab of the persona, I altered the saturation and vibrance of the color, plus adjusted the shadows and highlights, before returning to the Pixel persona. These adjustments could have been done in the Pixel persona, using various adjustment layers, but in the Develop persona, all the adjustments are in one place and ready to use. If you have a problem getting the exact figures in the adjustment, tap on the number at the end of the sliders to manually add the number you want. I boosted the saturation to 29% and the vibrance to 30%. Already the colors are more to my liking. Especially the blue streak running across the middle of the image. Next, in the Shadows and Highlights section, in the Adjustment sliders, I made shadows 54% and highlights -65%. Next, I raised the contrast to 20% and brightness to 6%. I then clicked on the Develop button in the top left to return the original layer back to the photo persona. Once back in the photo persona, I added a channel mixer via the Adjustment Studio. Then once the Adjustments panel had opened and kept it in the red channel settings, I changed the red to 108%, the blue to -25%, and offset to 6. The very last step is again something that depends on your image and your taste. That is cropping the image. In the original Photoshop tutorial, he cropped to a 16:9 setting. So, I will do the same. I just clicked on the crop tool icon in the tools bar to open the crop grid. Once the crop grid was opened, I clicked on the options at the top and selected Resample, and changed the units to inches. I changed the width to 16 and the height to 9, using the sliders on the left. This alters the crop grid to the set ratio. I then altered the size and position of the grid, so the figure was where I wanted it, then clicked the tick button at the top to apply the crop size. The last thing to do is save your project and/or export the finished image.